how did I have a 10-pound, 4-ounce baby in my bedroom after having a previous cesarean when all the doctors told me that would be impossible? Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about something a little different. I'm going to get a little more personal, and I'm not giving you a whole bunch of tips and advice, but I'm going to tell you my own birth story. I want to ask questions. I want you to ask me questions about home birth. You can ask questions about my birth. You can ask questions about home birth in general, because I really want to start showcasing home birth more. So I want people to ask about it. I want to talk about it. But I don't want to just tell you all of my thoughts on home birth. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your concerns. So please go to the comments and ask me a question about home birth. I want to hear some of your home birth stories. If you guys have a home birth story you want to share with me, something that just like made you feel strong and powerful, something special about your home birth, I want you to go ahead and share your story in the comments. For my third baby, I actually had a home birth VBAC. So I think the biggest lesson that I learned from my home birth was really just to listen to your body. I learned how to surrender. Surrender is definitely the most important thing I learned into it. I just kind of told myself, like, I'm making the best choice for me and my baby, because I believe that having a baby at home is safer for me than having a baby in the hospital. I believe that if I have an emergency, I will have signs that an emergency is going to happen, and we will be able to go to a hospital. And if that happens, I'm okay with that, because I know I did everything possible to try to make for a healthy mom and a healthy baby. Because it's not only about having a healthy baby, it's about having a healthy mom too. So a lot of people wonder why I chose home birth. And the truth is, like, home birth is something that had always been in the back of my head, but not something that I ever really thought I would do. My first 2 birth experiences in the hospital were just not what I envisioned birth to be. Birth for me is something that's so powerful and sacred, and my very first birth experience, which was my C-section for a breech presentation, was just frankly, that was a terrible experience. I love hearing stories where women have had these really amazing C-section experiences. Unfortunately, that was not my experience at all. And I began planning my VBAC the day I found out I needed a C-section. So fast forward to year 2017, and my second son was born, and I had him via successful VBAC at the same hospital as my C-section with the same doctor. She was really amazingly supportive, and so I was very happy with that birth experience. But there were quite a few things that happened in the hospital that I just felt were unnecessary, that I wasn't okay with. I didn't feel like I was listened to the whole time. I didn't feel like I was being taken seriously. So I wasn't planning a home birth from the beginning for a few different reasons. But once things kind of started, moving along in my pregnancy, I kind of got to the point where I was like, every time I'd go to the hospital for something like an ultrasound, I had this anxiety and this panic and fear that came over me. And I knew I couldn't do that in birth. I knew I couldn't do that in labor, and that would just hinder my labor, and I would end up with a bad experience. So that's why with my third, I decided, I'm doing this different, and I'm having a home birth. I don't care what anybody says. My husband and I are going to make this happen. So I went into labor around 2 o'clock in the morning, I guess. I had woken up having some very mild contractions, but it was nothing outside of my norm at that time. And then I got up to go to the bathroom, and I came back and lay down and felt like I was kind of leaking a little bit. I thought I was peeing myself, and I was like, well, I just went to the bathroom. Why am I peeing? And I got up and went to the bathroom again and peed again. And when I laid back down, I leaked again, and I was like, why am I peeing again? Every time I'd lay down, a little bit of fluid would trickle out. So I got up to go to the bathroom again. I kept thinking the baby was laying on my bladder or something. No, my water broke and was trickling out, and I didn't realize it. But then the contractions kind of started getting a little stronger, and I was like, oh, this actually might be the real deal. So I went downstairs and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I got some oatmeal. I made oatmeal and I was sitting there eating like oatmeal with berries in it, standing at my countertop, and every time a contraction would come, I'd like hold onto the countertop and squat down into it, and I could tell like this is labor. And I went to the bathroom and I was standing over the toilet when I had a contraction, and a bunch of fluid came out and I had a little bit of bloody show. And my 4-year, well, he was 3 then, actually walked in as that happened, and he took one look at me and he went running and he goes, Daddy, mommy needs a doula. And I thought that was just the funniest thing ever, because he was totally like not concerned. He was just like, we need to get mommy a doula now. He actually told him to go out to the store and get me a doula, which was really funny. But so my husband was like, so should I call out of work? And I'm like, yeah, probably. So I overhear him on the phone with his boss, and he goes, yeah, so I'm probably not coming in today because my wife's water broke. And then I hear him be like, oh yeah, so I'm definitely not coming in today. And apparently whoever was on the other end was like, you're probably not coming in. You mean you're definitely not coming in? Your wife's water broke. And like, I think we were just not, we were just taking a minute to like really wrap our minds around like this baby was finally coming and this was actually happening. So we, just kind of like hung out all day, and in the morning I called my birth team and people came over and checked on me. My amazing doula and photographer came over and checked in on me, and she hung out with me for a while. I was having the weirdest labor pattern I've ever had. So I've actually, I haven't even seen a client have a labor pattern like this, but I would have contractions for they'd be like every 3 minutes for like 5 contractions, and then they'd stop completely, like not even just fizzle out. They'd stop completely for like a half hour or an hour, and then they'd be really close again for just a handful of contractions, not many, and then they'd stop again. And I stuck at this pattern for probably till probably about noon. That's the pattern I was in till noon. And then around noon, it started to kind of pick up and get a little more intense and regular. I called my mom at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and she lives 3 hours away, and I called her and I'm like, so I'm in labor and I want you to come to the house and watch the boys for me. Can you do that? Yeah, I'm having a home birth, by the way. So I think that was the first he found out that my dad actually found out I was having a home birth. And I'm pretty sure I talked to my mom about it before, but it was like, maybe we'll go to the hospital, maybe we'll have a home birth kind of thing. Like, no, we were having a home birth. And so she comes up and she watches the kids for me, and she was kind of like, yeah, I'll call you back. And then she called back a little while later, and she's like, okay, I'm in the car on my way. So that was kind of funny. But so she gets up here and she like watches the kids, and around noon I started crying. I was like, I just want my mommy to make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's all I want. And I just I love that memory only because if I was in the hospital, I wouldn't have been able to have that. I would not have been able to eat what I wanted in the hospital. I mean, I could have, but like my mom wouldn't have been there to just go make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. My kids came in. My 3-year-old would come in and rub my back and say, it's okay, mama, it's okay. I have a really great picture of me just like roaring through a contraction, and my 3-year-old just rubbing my back like, it's okay. Which was really sweet. Then, so I guess at some point, I just remember at some point I hit the wall, and I must have been in transition because I was telling my husband I wanted to go to the hospital, and I was like done with this. I wanted this baby out. This baby was never going to be born. I was done. And I remember I was kneeling next to my bed, and I had some chucks on the ground, and with every contraction I'd lose more fluid, and there was a lot more bloody show. And I just remember my husband being like, what's that? And like, is that normal? And I was like, yeah, that's normal. So that kind of like clued me into like, oh, we're getting to that point of birth. And So I was pretty excited about that. But so from here, I feel like it lasted forever. But apparently I was only pushing for about 30 minutes. So it was kind of like I pushed on my knees on the side of my bed for a little while. And then I totally freaked out and was like, let me get in the tub, let me get in the tub. So my husband filled the bathtub up and I went and got in the tub. And he had candles lit for me, and he had candles on the end that I never go on. Like, I always get in the tub the same way. This time I got in the tub the opposite way. Why? I don't know. But I sat the wrong way in the tub and I threw my head backward in the middle of a contraction and set my hair on fire. So I'm definitely an advocate of flameless candles now at your birth so that nothing gets set on fire, especially you. That was kind of funny because everybody was kind of like, oh no, oh no. And I didn't really know what was happening. And then I just smelled my hair burning. But it was all good. I didn't get hurt. Nobody got hurt. And then I couldn't stay in the tub. I had dreamed of a water birth for how long? And I couldn't stay in the tub, like, to save my life. I kept arching my butt up out of the tub and screaming and was miserable. So at some point somebody was like, Jamie, you're gonna have to get out of the tub. Like, you can't keep coming up out of the water. If you're having a water birth, you gotta be in the water or you gotta get out. So I was like, well, I can't move. And next thing I knew, I don't know how I got out of the tub, but next thing I knew, I was standing next to the tub, holding onto my husband's neck, having a contraction, and just like started freaking out. And I just kind of like ran. Like, I don't know how I ended up in my living room, or I mean in my bedroom. I don't know how I ended up in my bedroom. But next thing I knew, I was standing in front of my dresser having contractions and just having that ring of fire feeling. And like, I knew my baby was coming, but it felt like it was never gonna happen. I thought I was pushing for like 3 hours at this point. Like, time just kind of like went away, and I was so sure that I had been pushing for 3 hours. This baby was never coming out. I was just so done. And then next thing I knew, I just like had this big contraction where I just like, I held my husband's neck, and I'm going to show you the pictures because these pictures are epic. But I held his neck and just like squeezed his neck and squatted, and next thing I knew, I was pulling my baby out and she was being born. And she was the fattest baby I've ever seen. But I remember pulling her up to my chest and thinking like, check to see if, like, is it a boy or a girl? Like, check to see, but I couldn't like verbalize anything. I was just like crying and yelling for my mom. And then I heard my husband say, it's a girl. And we've got 2 boys. Those of you who don't know, we have 2 boys, and we had been wanting a girl. And we were team green, so we didn't know if we were having a boy or a girl. But Aiden, my oldest, was always like, we have a baby sister. That's a baby sister in mommy's belly. We're having a baby girl. And I was like, I'd always be like, well, what if it's a boy? And he was like, it's not me. And he was so thrilled. But when my husband said it was a girl, I started sobbing and screaming at the top of my lungs. Like, I just started screaming for my mom. She was downstairs with the boys. And I mean, screaming, like blood curdling screaming. So my mom thought something was wrong and came running up the stairs. Guys, I have never seen my mom move so fast in my life. And she came busting in the room and realized we were yelling, it's a girl. And like, the baby had been born and it was a girl. And I think she was just thrilled. And then my kids were thrilled. It was amazing. And I just like got to lay back in my bed. And we were just like, this is the fattest baby we've ever seen. And she looked exactly like my second born, just fatter. My second born, my VBAC baby, was a 9-pound, 4-ounce baby. So this kid was fatter, like a twin, but fatter. Seriously. And I was like, this baby is gigantic. How much does this baby weigh? Guys, we had a running joke while I was pregnant. My son was 8'4", my second son was 9'4". So we were joking like, oh, this baby's gonna be 10'4". And everybody was like, that baby's not gonna be 10'4". Like, I didn't show until mid-3rd trimester. That baby weighed 10.4. Not even kidding. 10 pounds, 4 ounces. VBAC. In my bedroom. And no, she didn't get stuck. I know there was always that risk, but I truly believe that being able to move and listen to my body made such a difference. It made such a difference. When I think if I had tried to continue pushing her out in the tub in that sitting position, I think she would have gotten stuck. And I think if I had been in a hospital with my labor pattern, I think they would have given me Pitocin and I would have ended up with an epidural, because I'm not doing Pitocin without an epidural. I believe that I would have ended up in a position where she would have gotten stuck. I 100% believe that if I had had her in the hospital, I would have ended up with a very traumatic birth. I probably would have had a C-section with her. But being at home, I was able to listen to my body, and I birthed a 10-pound, 4-ounce VBAC baby. Yeah, guys, it's possible. I'm not saying everybody should do it and it's the right answer for everybody, but it's possible. So if this is right for you and you're a good candidate for home birth, you can have a baby at home. You can have a safe VBAC at home, and you can have a big baby at home. That's okay. It's possible. So the best part of having my baby at home was being able to sit back in my bed and be delivered a slice of the best pizza in the world right away, and just lay there with my kids and my husband, sharing the bed with me, snuggled up, just loving on this precious baby who was just so fat. And even my dog, she just jumped up in bed and came over and started sniffing the baby. I knew for me that I just had to accept what happened. I knew that God was in control. And I think it was the biggest lesson in just trusting and accepting that I have to surrender to this labor. I have to surrender to what my body's doing. I have to work with my body, and I have to accept the cards that come to me. If this isn't meant to be, if this home birth isn't meant to be, then something will signal me that it's time to go to the hospital and have a safer birth there. But at no point did I feel like I was not safe at home. I bled a little bit. I bled a little bit more than we would have liked to have seen me bleed. So this is going to freak a lot of you out. Close your ears if you're not ready to hear it. But I actually had a placenta smoothie. That was not on my to-do list. That is not something I had planned to do. But it was something that had to happen. And it worked. It worked to help control my bleeding. I didn't have any issues with bleeding after that. My bleeding was really normal. I felt great. Any question you have about home birth, I want you to ask it, and I'm going to answer it. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you want more tips and tricks about how you can achieve the birth you have been dreaming of. What was the scariest part of home birth? In the beginning, there was concerns about what if there's an emergency, but I feel like we did enough research and got comfortable with accepting that risk, because for us, we felt that the risks of being in the hospital were actually higher than the risks of being at home.